the streets of the world now are echoing with the rational street, let us say, rather than the emotional street, is echoing with the demand, come to some settlement.
Exactly.
And let's close this chapter, because this chapter has bled the whole world.
Absolutely.
It hasn't bled just West Asia.
No.
It hasn't just bled the Abrahamic faiths, who are constantly, at war at the moment.
Sure.
It is bleeding all humanitarian sentiment.
Right.
And if we don't find the means to, stop it now, what do you get? You're only preparing the ground for the next generation.
Exactly.
So
more radicalism, more radicalization.
Absolutely. And there you can see the consequences of radicalization already being seeded.
Yes, absolutely.
In many places, in diverse places.
Right.
I won't be surprised if there is a sudden escalation of radicalism, among different communities and groups.
Hello and welcome to StratNewsGlobal. You're on our evening program, The Gist. My guest this evening on The Gist is Mr. MJ Akbar, well-known author, analyst, and of course, one of the iconic journalists in India. Welcome to this program, and so I wanted to talk to you about the Israel-Hamas conflict almost a fortnight after it began and where we are today. So, if we see what's obtaining today on 31st of October, and it started on 7th of October, so almost 3 weeks gone, do you think that the world has got a grip on what is happening there, or we are still grappling with where this is going?
The world doesn't have a grip on that region and hasn't had for decades.
Right.
To imagine that the world will suddenly get a grip and there, I think, is optimistic beyond the capability of anyone's imagination. The problem is not getting a grip. The problem is finding a confluence between actuality, imagined fears, and most of all, a history that is, what shall I say, benighted.
Right.
To find a solution to that problem is, you can find any number of solutions on paper. You can't find them on the ground or in reality, because I think fears overtake the dotted line. I've watched it from Arafat onwards.
Yes.
When
PLO was at its peak.
he couldn't put his signature on the final solution. President Clinton, who was the last serious effort that was made.
Right.
And as he once remarked, I think in a very small gathering, he says, those 12 Armenian settlements or something, on which eventually again an accord broke away. But time has moved on, and actually reality has moved on. And I think now the ability of both sides to come to each other, to come towards each other, has actually almost disappeared. Right? It would require a much stronger will than the world has to define a settlement.
Okay. So, when you look back on the 7th of October, when the Hamas attack took place in the Gaza Strip and in Israel, the sympathy was fully, more or less,
absolutely,
with Israel.
I think on day one, even those, let us say, who were pro-Hamas chose silence.
Right.
Because nobody will accept, arbitrary terrorism.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think nobody is going to accept the killing of children, the killing of women.
Exactly.
I'm sorry to put it like this, but men comparatively are dispensable.
Yes.
Because, people realize that men start wars and
Yes.
men should suffer
Yeah,
in
exactly.
their consequences.
Yes.
But to hit women and children and innocent people is completely against all doctrine. I tell you, it is against religious doctrine.
Right.
Certainly, in Islam and the Quranic doctrine, it is against it.
Right.
Clearly against it. And certainly in international law.
That's
Right? International
Day
law.
one, yeah, exactly. So Israel had all the sympathy.
It has all the sympathy and deservedly so.
So,
But when the world continues to see the continuous destruction of Gaza,
yes.
and Gaza is not simply a stone which can be turned into rubble. It's lives,
Absolutely. So many lives there.
and once again it's the women and children.
Yeah.
And then to use emotionalism to justify it, even if it is using crafted video
Right.
in order to justify it, eventually it doesn't succeed because nobody believes it.
So that counterproductive nature of this entire reaction or overreaction, as it is being described by many people, Israel's current operation, let me say, in Gaza, it leaves a lot of friends of Israel in a difficult position.
Yeah, absolutely, it does leave them. One of the most, when I think about it, I still shudder, internally, and almost break down when I remember Auschwitz.
Yeah.
I went there.
Right.
I wrote about it, so it isn't any, I did it publicly. I wrote about copiously,
Sure.
literally crying.
Yeah.
You can't believe the inhumanity.
Sure.
And so anyone who tries equivalence is simply either ignorant or prejudiced beyond measure.
True.
But then, how do you deal with, a one-sided attack on civilian forces? And you will see, therefore, then the world is, the streets of the world now are echoing with the rational street, let us say, rather than the emotional street, is echoing with the demand, come to some settlement.
Exactly.
And let's close this chapter.
Right.
Because this chapter has bled the whole world.
Absolutely.
It hasn't bled just West Asia.
No.
It hasn't just bled the Abrahamic faiths, who are constantly, at war at the moment.
Sure.
It is bleeding all humanitarian sentiment.
Right.
And if we don't find the means to, stop it now, what do you get? You're only preparing the ground for the next generation.
Exactly.
So
More radicalism, more radicalization.
absolutely. And there you can see the consequences of radicalization already being seeded
Yes. Absolutely.
in many places, in diverse places.
Right.
I won't be surprised if there is a sudden escalation of radicalism, among different communities and groups.
True. So, because we now understand that, what happened on 7th was unpardonable, shouldn't have happened. But after that, in this 3 weeks, and if this stretches further, what is the world going to do, or what are the major powers likely to do, in your view?
So far the major powers think that they can have their cake and eat it too.
Okay.
Right? So you can say that let me extract what domestic benefits.
Right.
It's always at play.
Yes.
I can,
Right.
because everybody is in election mode. I mean, let's say the UK and the USA,
Sure.
both are in election mode.
Right.
They have to worry. Right? Then
France has the similar.
similar this thing, although France has been, I think, far more nuanced.
Sure.
Macron went and met
Right.
Mahmoud Abbas
Yes.
and so on, without reducing or in any way diminishing its condemnation of Hamas, but basically recognizing that there are human beings on both sides.
Absolutely.
Right? And it is the responsibility and the duty of those who have influence to,
Sure.
I very often, I think and I believe that diplomacy is really not about exercising influence on your enemies. the enemies will only be influenced by your defense and security.
And hard power, basically.
And hard power.
Yes.
Diplomacy is about exercising the maximum mutually beneficial relationship with friends.
Right. Absolutely.
So this is the moment for friends to step in
Yeah.
and tell both sides
Right.
that hostility by itself is not a solution.
Yeah, exactly. So I think US has a major role to play there with Israel. Hopefully they will step up and do that. Coming to India's stand and India's approach to this entire issue, I think on day one, the Prime Minister was very clear about condemning the terrorism or the barbaric acts that were carried out. And India abstaining from the UN vote also carries forward India's long-standing stand on this. But does this affect India in any way in West Asia? What is it going to be kind of a fallout for India going forward?
No, the most important, I think, element of Government of India's public positions and indeed private decision making has been its reassertion, I think, within 2 days.
2 days, yes.
First 2 3 days, 4 days,
Right.
of the fact that we are committed to a two-nation solution.
Right. Absolutely.
Right? Yes.
Creation of Palestine is not, we are not opposing it.
We are not, no, we have never opposed it,
Exactly.
and we don't oppose it now.
Yes.
And we know that we would like a negotiated settlement,
Right.
which is the only way a settlement is going to be, because there is no longer anything called a complete military victory.
No.
Actually, that concept
It's gone, yes.
is gone.
Yeah.
Wars are no longer declared, nor do wars end on some dramatic day
No.
of surrender.
Exactly.
With the sword being
True.
put.
Yeah.
I think the last I can remember of such an event was when Niazi surrendered
1971.
to
Exactly.
Lieutenant General Arora.
Exactly.
Right?
That's
I
right.
can't, I don't know if you know.
No,
any other-
nothing else after that. No.
After that.
There have been no termination as
No
termination.
termination, termination. And so, that age, as it were,
As past.
is passed, and the Geneva Convention, nobody knows either Geneva or a convention.
Right.
So I think in this very difficult new environment where conflict seems to be seen easy, I wrote one piece, a small piece, when I was remembered what Saladin had said, that blood doesn't sleep. And I think blood of Abrahamic faiths is even more restless.
Yeah, exactly.
Has been in the last 100 years. And elsewhere, you can blame colonialism, you can blame imperialism, and they also are justified blaming. But eventually it is the leaderships of the moment who have to have the wisdom, the breadth. I think there is no Menachem Begin, there is no Anwar Sadat.
Right. Who took such risks to go ahead
And to think that they achieved what they did without risk, personal risk.
Right.
After all, what happened?
Correct.
Anwar Sadat paid for his life.
Yeah, exactly.
By who? By blood.
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's true.
I mean, he paid the price.
paid the price.
But then he left his country in better shape.
Much better shape, yes.
So he was, in that sense, a hero.
So in a way, India has actually reasserted its position, has reaffirmed its position. And going forward, it will continue to do its best behind the scene, perhaps.
Yeah. I think sometimes the best way to deal with the situation is to speak gently, speak wisely,
Right.
and speak outside this great temptation which you and I are both falling for, called the camera.
Yes, we are practitioners in a way of that also, but it doesn't matter. But the one other thought that comes to mind, and a lot of people are now talking about it, is that by its overreaction or its actions in Gaza, Israel is actually forcing or is enabling greater Arab unity, which is not good for it or for the region itself. How does that pan out?
Well, the Arab street is easier to unite than Arab governments.
Okay. Right.
But the Arab governments cannot live too far above the street.
That's true. They have to be guided or dictated by what happens.
No
there.
one can.
Sure.
No government. And it's a myth to believe that, governments which are not democratic don't have to listen to people. They have to. Everybody has to. To that extent, yes. But unity for what purpose? Or clarity for what purpose? Right? Yeah. We have to understand that the people's voice, the democratic culture of the world is now stronger than the autocratic culture. People no longer believe that autocracy equals stability. This is as true of people who have small autocratic states, or say, whatever you'd like to call them, or large states like China. They can't.
No. Exactly.
Right? So, to that extent, actually, democracy has proved to be far more powerful.
And enduring.
Than its precedents.
Sure.
So, that same thing will operate. Right? The Israeli government also cannot live beyond or above its own public opinion. Of course, Israel is a democracy, so of course it is a much more direct.
Absolutely, impact on the leadership
or leadership.
The
and you see
decision-making.
But the most interesting fact is the opinion polls. The opinion polls published in Maariv and elsewhere show that despite this tragedy, a large proportion, singly the largest proportion of people who say that only moderation and dialogue can take us forward.
The way forward. Yes. So that there lies the hope, I think.
There lies the hope. It always lies in the people because the people suffer. Not a single leader anywhere is going to do anything except live comfortably.
Exactly. And I think people will force the change or reconciliation.
Because nobody will see children die.
Right. Nobody wants
without a shudder.
Correct.
Because for every child lying in that rubble or in that camp, or in that home, or in that music hall, you see your own child. No?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's that what is going to force whatever solution that we get. But at the moment, it seems that we are living that uncertainty, also witnessing that uncertainty in Gaza. But there has to be a halt somewhere, at least the ground offensive and the the bombing that.
And I think theories like the latest one, which the Israel government is calling a concept paper, a vague term for that you can literally empty out Gaza.
It's not possible.
It's not. It's not acceptable.
It's not acceptable. And it will come at a very heavy price if that happens, I think. And it will have ramifications down the years going forward. But thank you very much once again for your insights. And I think one message that I can carry from here for our viewers and for us to understand what's happening is that dialogue and reconciliation has to happen in this kind of a situation, no matter what the provocation.
Yeah, no matter what the provocation.
Thank you very much for your time. Viewers, do keep watching StratNewsGlobal. You know where to reach us. We had this fascinating conversation on Israel-Hamas situation as it exists today on 31st of October. But do keep coming back to StratNewsGlobal. You know where to reach us. So you know where to comment. And we will expect your comments and feedback, which allows us to do more discussions on these lines or some other subjects. Until the next time, it's goodbye.